VEX kit tools and their uses. The two main tools used with building include the open-end wrench as well as the T15 or T8 star drive key. The open-end wrench on the larger end is used to hold nuts in place whenever you want to secure a screw to them, so the nut just does not spin aimlessly. Likewise, the smaller end of the open-end wrench is used to hold standoffs in place to perform similar procedures of securing screws to them. The T15 star drive key is used to fit most of the screws in your VEX kit of parts. The T15 star drive end fits the star drive screw, thus it is able to drive them home. The T8 star drive key, or the smaller key, is used to fit most of the set screws in the VEX kit of parts. This includes the universal joints as well as the shaft collars. To secure our screws to our pieces of metal, it's important to remember the term righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. This means that whenever you are building, if you have the screw coming from the perspective of you going into the piece away from you, you can use our term righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. I'm going to take a low profile nut and I'm going to put my thumb over this screw just so we can flip it around and see this again. Again, now our nut coming from the perspective of us, away from us. Once I put it onto this screw, I can then turn it right or in a clockwise direction in order to tighten this nut to the screw, to the piece of metal. Now what we have just done was called hand tightening a nut to a screw. What we then can do is take our T15 star drive key, and you will notice that it has a perfect imprint of the face of the screw. So it will fit directly into that screw, and we will take our open-end wrench, the smaller side because we are on the low profile nuts, that is what these will fit, and I can actually use my star drive key using the fundamentals of mechanical engineering to generate torque through an applied pressure some distance away from the center of rotation. So, in layman's terms, I'm going to use the long side of the screwdriver just so I can torque these bad boys down and make sure they will not go anywhere. This is very simply how to begin building with VEX metal. So to actually make sure these two will mesh together, we will need to employ the use of the high-strength shaft adapters. There are two different variations, the square bore, which we will look at first. If you look directly down the center, it has that square bore. This will perfectly be inserted onto our shaft, and then to use, we will place our gear directly onto that square bore shaft adapter. This means that we can now apply power directly to that shaft, and it will be transferred through that shaft adapter to our gear. Again, without the use of that shaft adapter, our gear is a little bit wobbly and the power to the shaft does not transfer to the gear. Spacers are used to create a space between two objects, often to properly position them. This means they are most likely used on drive shafts to properly allow space between your build, that is the metal end, and a wheel that would be on the opposite end. This can be done by simply putting either any various length spacer that you may have on the drive shaft, which will allow that space. Next, we have our washers. We have the steel washers, and both washers are usually thin discs with a hole used to distribute the load of a threaded fastener.